morning. It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. The stories you're liable to read in the Bible, they ain't necessarily so. Little David was small, but oh my. Little David was small, but oh my. He slew big Goliath, who laid down and dieth. Little David was small, but oh my. Old Jonah, he lived in a whale. Jonah, he lived in a whale. Yeah, he made his home in that fish's abdomen. Jonah, he lived in a whale. To get into heaven, don't snap for a 7, live clean, don't have no doubt. Yeah, I take that gospel wherever it's possible, but with a grain of salt. Methuselah lived 900 years. Methuselah lived 900 years. But what use is living when no gal will give in to no man what lives 900 years? Yes, it ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. They tell all you chillin' the devil's a villain, but it ain't necessarily so. I'm preaching this sermon to show it ain't necessarily so.
Well, thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone in one of these wonderful, cool mornings that we've been waiting all summer to have. It's finally here. So this morning we, as always, are called to join together in a spiritual community of hope, courage, and compassion. Let us begin. Whenever this fellowship gathers together, we light a chalice, a symbol of light, of truth, and of warmth and love. For opening words this morning, we'll read our opening words responsively. I'll read the words in white in regular type, and we'll all read together the italicized words in yellow. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, or before a flower, or a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. So once again, we'd like to welcome Steve Brooks to our service this morning. Steve has been a regular here, and he has quite an interesting life story, which I'll briefly review. It was full of twists and turns. He was born in Chicago, raised in York, Pennsylvania. He picked up a guitar at age 16 and played along with Pete Seeger Records. A week after high school graduation, he left for California to study philosophy and punch cows at Deep Springs College, which is 2 valleys west of Death Valley, which awakened his love for the West. After college, he headed back east just in time for the 3 Mile Island nuclear power accident. A year later, he was on stage with Pete Seeger, singing some songs with the original verses to "This Land Is Your Land." After blockading the plant and being convicted as one of the 3 Mile Island 9, he made his way from activism to journalism as a reporter for the New Orleans Times-Picayune. In 2001, he appeared on TV's I've Got a Secret as the 6-time world pun champion, and he still MCs Austin's O. Henry Pun Off. Did they correctly guess your...
They did not.
They did not.
I won $1,000.
Woohoo. Steve co-wrote the Slade Cleaves classic One Good Year and wrote other songs performed by the likes of Oscar-winning actor Russell Crowe. He also wrote a satirical Song of the Week for Jim Hightower's nationally syndicated radio show. He also tours now as a member of the legendary 60s folk group, the Limelighters. And by the way, the Limelighters will be performing here in Austin the last Saturday of October, October 25th, at the O4 Center in South Lamar. Please welcome Steve Brooks.
And I'd like to make actually two other announcements. I will be playing solo at the New World Deli the second Friday in October, October 10th. And in the meantime, my dear partner, Debbie, the one and only yoga lady, has begun teaching Friday morning yoga classes right here in this room at SASAC. They start at either 10 or 10:30, I forget which, but I invite you to check those out. But now, here's a little Leonard Cohen talking about the things that everybody assumes to be true, regardless of whether they actually are. Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows that the war is over. Everybody knows that the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight is fixed. The poor get poor and the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows that the captain lied. Everybody's got this broken feeling, like their father or their dog just died. Everybody's talking through their pockets. Everybody wants a box of chocolates or a long-stemmed rose. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that it's now or never. Everybody knows that it's me or you. Everybody knows that you live forever when you've done a line or two. Everybody knows the deal is rotten. Old Black Joe's still picking cotton for your ribbons and bows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that you've been in trouble. Everybody knows what you've been through. From the bloody cross at the top of Calvary to the beaches at Malibu. Everybody knows that it's coming apart. Take one last look at the Sacred Heart before it blows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows, everybody knows, that's how it goes. Everybody knows, everybody knows, everybody knows, that's how it goes. Everybody knows, everybody knows, everybody knows. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. So, in the life of this spiritual community, there are some important things to know. Everyone matters, and everyone is welcome here. We're grateful to gather this morning because we only get to meet in person once a month on this fourth Sunday. In this room, we get to listen, to pray, to gather, to sing, and afterwards, in the next room, we gather to share refreshments and meet some new friends when the service is over. This service is being recorded and will be available soon on the fellowship's website. And in addition to these in-person services, we also meet via Zoom on the second Sunday of each month at 10:30 a.m. As a spiritual community of hope, courage, and compassion, we believe compassion is a fine feeling, but it's made even better when we give it the power to actually do some good in the world. To live out its mission and to do some good in the world, the fellowship sets aside money to provide ongoing financial support to Community First. It's a village in Northeast Austin that provides comprehensive services to the homeless. And every quarter, the fellowship also raises money to support a different social outreach program. This quarter, the funds go to Austin Safe Alliance, better known as Safe Place. It's a program whose primary purpose is to provide help and a safe place to stay for the victims of domestic violence and their children. If you wish to contribute, there's a basket in the next room that you can donate to after the service. And thank you in advance for your generosity. And finally, thanks to Debbie White for bringing the flowers this morning. Yay. And now to Steve.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 158, Praise the Source of Faith and Learning. Praise the source of faith and learning that has sparked and stoked the mind with a passion for discerning how the world has been designed. With the source of wonder flowing from the wonders we survey, keep our faith forever growing and renew our need to pray. Source of wisdom, we acknowledge that our science and our art and the breadth of human knowledge only partial truth impart. Far beyond our calculations lies a depth we cannot sound, where the purpose for creation and the pulse of life are found. Praise for minds to probe the heavens, praise for strength to breathe the air. Praise for all that beauty leavens, praise for silence, music, prayer. Praise for justice and compassion and for strangers, neighbors, friends, praise for hearts and lips to fashion, praise for love that never ends. Thank you. You may be seated. And I invite you to join in responsive reading, number 650. One of my favorites, Cherish Your Doubts. I think we know the drill here. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth.
Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery.
A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief.
Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is the passage which eats away the false.
Let no one fear for the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief.
The truth stands boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing.
For truth, if it be truth, arises from each testing stronger, more secure.
Those that silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands.
But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock.
They shall walk in the light of growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure.
Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help.
It gives the wise as a staff to the blind. Doubt is the attendant of truth.
Spirit of life. One of the gifts you make available to us is discernment. In our busy lives, things often fly at us so fast that it's hard to sort out what's true from what's not. We make snap judgments, and then later on, we regret to find out that we have deceived ourselves. Even worse, we discover that, without meaning to, we have deceived other people. In times like these, we remind ourselves that while we are free to search for truth and meaning, responsibility is also a part of our search. Spirit of life, when we are tempted to react mindlessly to the news of the day, remind us to pause a moment, to thoughtfully consult both our reason and our still small voice within, to exercise your gracious gift of discernment. I'd like to invite us to close our eyes and have a minute of silence. When you see white men marching in the street like the Ku Klux Klan without the sheets, when they get blessed by a presidential tweet. It's strange but true. Welcome to the new abnormal. When your election's under an attack by fancy bears a-playing hacky sack and making up alternatives to facts. This isn't spin, you're living in the new abnormal. The new abnormal, how things have changed. What's strange is when it doesn't seem so strange. Through a looking glass or down some wormhole, you've landed in the new abnormal. By the side of Lady Liberty stands a sign that reads no vacancy, except for those who can afford the fee. You're tired and poor are out the door in the new abnormal. The new abnormal, how things have changed. What's strange is when it doesn't seem so strange. Through a looking glass or down some wormhole, you've landed in the new abnormal. It's just a dream, it's what you tell yourself. Click your heels and you'll be someplace else. That doesn't make you doubt your mental health or curse your luck for getting stuck in the new abnormal. 'Cause what's the deal? This can't be real. The new abnormal. New abnormal. Thank you. You've probably never heard of a writer named Christopher Blair. But if you spend much time on social media, you've probably seen his work. Blair shares several traits with his fellow writer from Maine, Stephen King. He cooks up horror stories for a living. He may rival King's audience with up to 6 million readers a month. The BBC once dubbed Blair the godfather of fake news. He used to blog about politics until he discovered it was more lucrative simply to make stuff up. Stuff that appealed directly to America's reptile brain. Stuff like a Clinton Foundation ship that carried sex slaves, or Joe Biden awarding a presidential medal to a porn star. On his own website, Blair labels his confections as satire, but his goal is to get them picked up by other sites that have even fewer scruples. The more people click through, the more he can earn from advertisers, as much as $15,000 a month. As Blair posted one article, he remarked to a real-life reporter, "How could any thinking person believe this nonsense?" It's easy to laugh about someone like Blair. Not so long ago, he would have seemed like a satire himself, like a character out of the movie Idiocracy. That was before we heard the phrase alternative facts. That was before the Oxford dictionaries declared the word of the year was the expression post-truth. Welcome to the grave new world of truth decay. It's a Humpty Dumpty world in which words can mean whatever you want them to, and facts can be whatever you'd like them to be. A question that long puzzled philosophers is now important to all of us. What is truth? It's a paradox of our so-called information age that it's also a misinformation age. More than any other time in recorded history, we have the collective knowledge of humankind at our fingertips. So, why don't we bother to check it out? When I spend a few minutes in cyberspace, I find it choked with the opposite of knowledge: bogus quotes, suspect statistics, and cockeyed conspiracies. They come from both ends of the political spectrum. The University of Colorado found that nearly half of the fake news on Facebook was shared by users who rated themselves either extremely conservative or extremely liberal. I confess that I take all of this personally. Besides being a musician, as Mike mentioned, I'm also a journalist. For 40 years, publications have paid me to crank up my crap detectors, to sift truth from falsehood. But these days, I sometimes wonder, why bother? This morning, I'd like to prove myself wrong. I'd like to argue why we should all do our parts to fight truth decay. The problem is a lot bigger than just lone con artists and careless clicks. It is a calculated and coordinated assault on our collective sense of reality. At stake are many of the spiritual values that Unitarian Universalists hold dear. For starters, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the democratic process. Both concepts, after all, are intimately tied up together. They're products of the age of reason, of that sunny 18th century belief that if citizens can get the facts, then we can govern ourselves. Ask Thomas Jefferson, who wrote, "The people cannot be safe without information." It is rare that I agree with the conspiracy guru Alex Jones, but he's right about one thing. There is an info war going on, and it's being waged one fake at a time. It starts with fake people. A May study found that 37% of the traffic on the internet comes from bad bots, malicious software programs that are pretending to be human beings. A lot of those bots get rented by celebrities and wannabe celebrities who are trying to inflate their numbers of followers. One company hired out bots in bunches as large as 750,000 to everyone from actors to the computer tycoon Michael Dell. Fake accounts also spread fake news. They create the illusion that if so many people are repeating something, well, it must be true. Says David Mickelson, the co-founder of the fact-checking website Snopes, "The bilge keeps coming faster than you can pump." Today, most fake news doesn't come from freelancers like Chris Blair. It's dominated by industrial operations with darker motives. In 2016, a Russian agency employed 600 workers to churn out fake posts, fake profiles, and even fake street protests. Amplified by armies of bots, they reached up to 126 million Americans and arguably helped to sway a presidential election. At that scale, fake news causes real-world tragedies. Misinformation about COVID contributed to over 300,000 preventable deaths among unvaccinated Americans, according to Brown University. On the political front, a big lie that an election was stolen stirred a mob to assault the U.S. Capitol. 4 years later, A third of Americans still believed the big lie, according to polls, and they voted the liar-in-chief back into office. But the agenda is broader than a single election. Says Rick Stengel, who used to combat Russian trolls for the U.S. State Department, back when the State Department did that kind of thing, it's less the propagation of lies than the idea that there is no truth. It seeks to undermine the very concept of empirical facts. The less that people can distinguish truth from lies, the more they become vulnerable to dictators and cult leaders, says the psychotherapist Stephanie Sarkis. She writes, "You question your reality and you start accepting theirs. But if you think fake news is a problem today, wait until tomorrow. The latest artificial intelligence tools make it fast and easy to clone both a person's voice and their image. So-called deep fakes have simulated everything from fake kidnappings to fake celebrity sex videos. Not to mention politicians mouthing words that they never actually said. Like the US president telling people in New Hampshire to stay at home and not to go vote. At this point, if you're not cowering under your chair, you might be wondering, what can religious liberals do to take back the truth? How can we put responsibility back into the search for truth and meaning? We might start with something very basic, recognizing what truth is and what it isn't. We could all stand to relearn that skill, and we can learn from two groups who do it for a living, scientists and philosophers. Let's start with scientists. Their chief contribution to truth has been the scientific method. It's a practical approach that assumes there's a real world out there, and we can learn objective truths about it by performing experiments. A crucial idea in science is that truth gets validated by a community. If two different people perform the same experiment and they get the same results, we can have high confidence in their conclusions. Likewise, if many scientists get consistent results over time, they're onto something. That's why they largely agree on climate change. They have long predicted extreme droughts, storms, and floods. Now, we see their forecasts coming true. Philosophers give us a second useful measure of objective truth, and that is logic. If I am to accept a story as being true, it should not contradict itself. It should fit the facts, and the facts should come from reliable sources. Science and logic can help us recognize what truth is. It's also helpful to recognize what truth is not. Truth is not opinion, although we often pretend that it is. Most of us are guilty of saying, one time or another, well, I have my truth and you have yours, when we're really talking about opinions. In our liberal religious hearts, we yearn to treat all opinions as valuable. Everybody has equal rights, and so it's nice to think that everyone could be equally right. The problem is that it ain't necessarily so. Some people believe that our planet is 6,000 years old and it's flat. Or they believe big lies about killer vaccines and stolen elections. And those lies go viral. Writes the astronomer David Helfand. Everybody feels equally well qualified to post it on their blog, where it becomes their personal version of the truth that can be easily shared and propagated. Every person has inherent worth and dignity, but we don't have to take every opinion seriously, and we certainly don't have to share it with our friends. Let's assume that none of us really wants to share fake news. The question then becomes, well, how do we tell it from real news these days? When bad actors are trying to deceive us, how do we sort out the false from the true? This is an area where a third group of professionals might be able to help us: journalists. I refer especially to those much maligned sources, the mainstream media. It's true that they have biases and that they sometimes get facts wrong. But compared to any other source of news, day in and day out, the mainstream media get closer to the truth than anyone else. There's good reason for that: vetting and fact-checking. In my newspaper days, my articles went through 3 levels of editors before they ever saw print. We had a detailed code of professional ethics as well. The first principle: seek truth and report it. So, if you'd like to be a more responsible news consumer, I would like to offer some practical tips from my years as a card-carrying reporter. Things to think about before sharing information on Facebook, X, Instagram, or, God forbid, TikTok. First, consider the source. If it's an individual, do they actually know the subject they're talking about? When I get a news assignment, my first step is often to identify the actual experts. If the source is a publication, I look at its track record. Big city newspapers and network news tend to be the most reliable and objective sources, although unfortunately CBS News is starting to become an exception to that. Except for CNN, cable news and political websites tend to be more biased and less fact-checked. Second, look at multiple news sources. No reputable newspaper publishes a controversial story without confirming it from at least 2 independent informants. Third, check facts and statistics before passing them along. These days, it's easy to do thanks to hyperlinks. Click on one, and you can judge for yourself whether the source of a fact is believable or bunk. An alternative way to research a suspicious-sounding story is to go to websites like Snopes, PolitiFact, and of course, factcheck.com. They don't just rate how truthful a story is, they lay out which parts are accurate and which parts are not. Fourth, listen for weasel words. If a speaker uses lots of qualifiers like people say or no one really knows, but chances are that they're trying to put one over on you. Lastly, for God's sake, don't share anything generated by AI unless you clearly identify it as AI. Artificial intelligence is to truth what artificial flavoring is to flavor. Here's a psychological tip. Beware confirmation bias. Unconsciously, we are all prone to cherry pick information that confirms what we already believe. We screen out information that contradicts it. As George Costanza said on Seinfeld, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it. At a deeper level, we might also ask ourselves, why are we sharing a particular piece of news? Is our motivation to inform others, or is it to get them as angry as we are? Says the scholar Michael Peterson, who studies how rumors spread online. We need to begin pointing the finger back at ourselves and the fleeting impulses we feel to incite hostility. In closing, I would like to remind us that there is great power in truth. Jesus promised that it would set us free. Gandhi spoke of truth force, and he taught that it could change minds and hearts. He meant that when people see tangible proof of injustice, they often demand an end to it. It can be soldiers torturing civilians, police beating protesters, bosses sexually harassing workers, or masked thugs kidnapping immigrants off the streets. Truth force is precisely what today's trolls are afraid of. It's why they try to strip us of critical thinking, to render us helpless to tell facts from falsehoods. The good news is that because we all help to create the problem, we can each help to fix it. In our age of unreason, to stand up for clear thinking and common sense can be a revolutionary act. As we are fighting truth decay, we can think of it as mental flossing. The torch of truth falls and goes out if we expect someone else to carry it. Let each of us then resolve to raise the torch on our own, that instead of casting shadows of doubt and deception, we may be lights unto the world. The future of our democracy and of our planet may depend on it. And that's no lie. And blessed be. And I believe, yes, we all get to sing one more time. Please rise as you're willing and able to join in singing hymn number 293, O Star of Truth. O star of truth, down shine through clouds of doubt and fear. I ask beneath thy guidance, my pathway may appear. However long the journey, however hard it be, I be home and lead on, I follow thee. I know thy blessed radiance can never lead astray, though ancient creed and custom they point another way, or through the untrod desert or over trackless sea. Though I be lone and weary, lead on, I follow thee.
Thanks again, Steve. You know, as I was sitting here, it occurred to me that the Ten Commandments does not have an amendment process for it. But if it did, I would propose the 11th commandment: thou hast a moral duty to avoid passing on fake news on social media. I also want to just express some joy again for Steve coming back to talk to us once more. You don't maybe realize it, but he just makes being a lay leader, like my job, so easy. I ring the bowl, turn on the lights, say a few words, and then just sit back and enjoy whatever Steve has prepared for us. It's a real joy. And I also say there was a joy that reminded me of, as Steve was talking, that we actually did a service together a while ago. It was AI and spirituality. There's a wonderful recording of it, thanks to our staff here on YouTube, if you want to go back and listen to that. Maybe we should do an update of that in another year or so.
I think so.
Yeah. So our closing words in this morning's service, we end with extinguishing the chalice and these words: as we leave this sacred place, may we carry the light within us out into the world and into the next weeks of our lives. Refreshments.
It's worth noting that there actually already is a commandment about bearing false witness. So we don't need it.
I don't do too
We just need to get them out of Texas schools.
These days I seem to think a lot about the things that I forgot to do.